It's a little after 11. Let's get started with the ad hoc committee on chronic inebriates and homeless. And let's begin with introductions here. And should we start with you at the end, Mr. Payne?
Dig training, just something.
Pete Peterson, Zenwood.
Bill Evans.
Amanda Moser, clerk's office.
Sharon Porter, Salvation Army Cliff Row.
Heidi Heinrich, Lucky Wishbone, and President of the Fairview Business Association.
Christopher Constant, Fairview Community Council, and Aquila.
Mary Beth Brinkle with Catholic Social Services and the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness.
Mark Bryant, I'm with the Alaska Veterans Foundation.
I'm Paul Sheehan. I'm the Executive Director of the Alaska Veterans Foundation.
John Kazowski, your treasurer. Rick Davies, Chairman of the Alaska Veterans Foundation.
And Dwayne Crofton, I lived in Fairview.
We have 4 presentations today. Ms. Gray Jackson is not with us today. She is on a well-deserved vacation.
She's in Maui.
Okay. We won't feel sorry for her, but she will have access to the recording of this later. I also will have to take off about 10 minutes before the end of the meeting, and I'll just turn over the conclusion of the meeting to one of my colleagues at that time. So, why don't we get started? Our first presenter today is Rick Davidge, and he's going to discuss some of the plans he has to help with homeless veterans. Davidge?
The Alaska Veterans Foundation is involved in understanding this problem and trying to put together a program that would help, particularly with respect to veterans, although the project can accommodate 25% of non-veterans. And that's a requirement of certain grants, particularly from the VA. And we've been involved in this for 6 years because initially we were told there were 600 homeless veterans in Anchorage. Being somebody involved in veteran work for the last too long, it didn't make sense to me. And we began to research that, and we found out the challenge report, which is required by Congress to be sent from the VA every year from every major community in the United States on giving the status of homeless veterans in their community, represented that there were 600 homeless in Anchorage, veterans. Finally, after asking lots of questions and getting our delegation to write letters, I finally got a call from a gentleman from the senior staff at the VA who said, Rick, that's just a number we needed to underwrite the money for the domiciliary, so it's not a real number. So the first question everybody asks is, well, how many homeless veterans are there? We participated in point-in-time count a number of years, and the counts continually are the same, about 80 to 90. Out of which about a third are transient, new, and the other people left. So we have in this community pretty well documented status of about 80 to 90 homeless veterans sometime in the year are without shelter. So we began to interview homeless veterans. You know, what can we do to help you be successful in getting back into the community, that kind of thing. Surprisingly, one of the first things they said is we don't want to live in a converted hotel downtown Anchorage. We want to be as far away from the 4th Avenue subculture as possible. Why is that? Because if we're down there, guess what? We get sucked right back into it. Okay. So we have to be outside of downtown Anchorage. The Alaska Mental Health Trust and I sat down in response to a grant provided by the state legislature to do the pre-development work on this 2 years ago. And they offered to provide us property that would meet our needs. We spent a year and a half looking at every piece of property the Alaska Mental Health Trust had that would fall somewhere within the municipality, which was a requirement. And finally concluded there simply was none that we could get that made it work because of various DOT overlays, other restrictions, relationships with neighbors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I work with about 6 community councils a month, so I'm keen on what neighborhoods think about things. And so we began a search, and I got a call from a friend who's a veteran who knew about a property outside of Clutha, above the AWW water treatment plant, which was 80 acres, and this woman's an elderly woman. She's the widow of a Korean War vet. and would be interested in selling her property. We secured an appraisal. The appraisal came back at, what, 650?
Yes.
650,000. She said, no, she wanted 3 million. I didn't think I could stretch that far. And I went to Okludna, who I work with regularly in my work in residential development, and they said, look, let me take this to the board. We might be interested in helping you. The board approved it, and they have made available to us, and I provided you a copy, this sliver of property on Okludna Road, next to the AWWU water treatment plant, and downhill from the 80 acres that we originally looked at. So just above us is the 80 acres. Now the reason I tell you that is because we're in the process of negotiating a right of first refusal on that property, because the woman's son has let us know that when and if she dies, they would be interested in doing something with this. So that's way out in the future. Nobody knows when she's going to pass. I think she's 80-something now. Tough as nails. Lives there all year round, etc. We received a grant from the state legislature for $300,000 to do all the pre-development work. We've used about $200,000 of that. The loss of this property, and we spent an enormous amount of money on design, appraisals, etc., really set us back, and we were ready to go last year, and this happened in December, and boom, we had to stop and start over again. And so now we have a new piece of property. The board of Okludna has approved this. We have to submit the full proposal. Also, I've given you is 2 spreadsheets, which I just got yesterday. We still have a number of holes to fill. Those are pending numbers, MEA's number, MTA's number, etc. But they'll give you some idea of the cost of this project. Now, what does this project do? At full build out with 100 living units, it takes 100 homeless people off the street of Anchorage. Permanently. Permanently. Not for 30 days, not for 90 days, not until they get sober. Permanently. With the additional 80 acres, we could add significant more. But with respect to this project and how it currently is designed, that's where we are. Phase 1 is the 2-story, 25 living facility, which is basically what we call our housing first, our intake facility. And then we will have 25 cabins related to that. The cabins are long-term permanent supportive housing for particularly veterans. Anybody who graduates from the domiciliary, who goes through their program, comes out clean, sober, etc., but still needs some help staying okay, has first priority over on the cabins. How is this thing funded? Legislature has requested that I make a presentation next month for funding. Now let me turn this into how this will be presented. First of all, we all know that the homeless are expensive. In fact, they're very expensive. 2 independent studies, one in Reno and one in Sydney, and now a dozen other studies in the United States have shown that a homeless adult for 10 years will cost a local community about $8 million. How the hell is that possible? Well, they start a cycle. They go through the jails, they go through the emergency rooms, they go through social services, etc., 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 etc. If you have questions while I'm talking, please shoot. I was flabbergasted at these numbers, but I've read the studies, and they're absolutely true, and they've been borne out with the housing first strategies of many, many communities in Lower 48. That an adult homeless person in about 10 years will cost the local community about $1 million. I'm not talking about deferred labor. I'm not talking about something else. This is direct cost to the community. You take 100 homeless people off the streets of Anchorage permanently. That will save this municipality approximately, what? $100 million in 10 years. That's number one. Secondly, because of the grant program that we worked on, the VA, federal VA, that wonderful agency, never mind, I won't go there, who supposedly solved homelessness 10 years ago, has a program called Grants in Per Diem. The grants and per diem program will reimburse the state, in this case, if they appropriate the money for the capital development, 65% of the cost of construction. 65% of the cost of construction. So this project leverages about 65% of about $3 million. It goes directly back to the state. Now you can't get that leverage until you're in place, in function, and the VA comes in and says, this is wonderful, we're reimbursing 65% of the capital construction. There's a hand in the back.
Yeah, is that money available for permanent housing or just for transitional?
It's available for housing first and long-term supportive housing, which includes permanent housing.
Okay.
Yeah. In addition, there are many other grants that we're in the process of securing, particularly through HUD, VA, and through private foundations. You'll see in the package that I sent you in the back, there's a long list of grant programs that we're in the process of securing. And those applications are now going in, and they'll be attached to the proposal when we make our presentation next month in June. State legislature is very, very supportive of this project. The congressional delegation is very supportive of this project, although Dan Sullivan has seen it. He and I have not sat down and had the nitty-gritty conversation yet. And the reason that's important, particularly with Lisa Murkowski, is Senate Appropriations Committee, which she will now chair, or be the second senior member, depending on how that all falls together, ensures two things. Number one, the grants and per diem reimbursement, which can be footnoted through committee, and the 50 site-specific, or what we call project-specific HUD-VASH vouchers. HUD-VASH vouchers are basically Section 8 housing specifically dedicated to veterans, and it takes a case manager with it. That has been the most successful thing that the federal government has done in the last 10 years in solving the homeless problem. Now let's talk a little bit about the homeless. We will not take everybody. We're going to be in Eklutna. We're 20 minutes from downtown Eagle River. We're about 25 minutes from the VA clinic, from the hospital, etc. If we don't think we can accommodate the needs of the individual physically or mentally, we'll look for someplace else for them to go. But if you look through this proposal, I hope you do, because we're going to ask the Assembly to support this project to the legislature for us and with us, you will find that this project is built around programs. It is not a programs built around project. First thing that happens with a homeless veteran, and you talk to them, the thing they desperately want is to be in the community of other veterans. Dick will tell you, when you leave service, you miss the camaraderie of those guys. And now we got gals in the service, but back when we were there, not so much. You've lost your family, basically. When you leave service, you've lost your job. You've lost your identity. You've lost your purpose. You've lost your discipline of getting up at a certain time, going to breakfast, etc., etc., etc. And you've lost, because you don't have it yet, any hope of a future. One of the things this project does is require you to work. Absolute requirement. Now, we work with partners like Labor Ready, etc., and the State Labor Program, and Vet Jobs, and the Warriors to Work program, etc., to find jobs for veterans. But some guys and some gals are not going to be able to do that. So on site, we provide immediately 2 and eventually 3 working opportunities. One will be a nursery, which will not only grow food for the mess hall, but will also grow materials for sale, and we'll bring those down to the farmers markets and sell those. Number 2, firewood processing. The guy that has the concession contract for all the firewood in Anchorage, effectively in Eagle River, is a partner with us, and we will be putting the processing plant on site. Basically, he delivers the 8 to 10 foot cans. We run them to the plant. They're cut, split, wrapped. The logo goes on it. He picks them up and distributes them. That's going to be jobs there, jobs in the nursery, and then hopefully in year 3, the beverage plant, which I'm working on with another partner privately, to use the 23,000-year-old water from Eklutna for bottling, not just for bottled water, but for other beverages, White Whale Water is very interested in doing that, and we've been working on that for a couple of years. And that will also provide jobs. So we have jobs on site and shuttles that take people to their jobs in the morning. We've had a very good relationship with Labor Ready. They're very excited about this. And frankly, I've met many veterans, homeless veterans, by working with Labor Ready, because I hire people all the time through Labor Ready and also at the domiciliary. What do we want from you? Guess what? The municipality has told me it will cost me $30,000 to rezone this project. Why can't we get rid of that fee? That doesn't make any sense. If we're saving that much money to the municipality, let's get rid of that rezoning fee. We'll still have to suck up the $10,000 for the engineers, but you know, the $30,000 for the rezone. The problem is the municipality doesn't have anything that would fit this zoning. So we'll have to be creative about that. And I'll come back to you with some recommendations on how we think we can fit. But there is no quote-unquote village idea within planning and zoning. It's units per square, per acre foot, or per acre. But this will not happen, I guarantee you. I've talked to Bill Walker about this, unless the municipality supports this project. We're looking at about 3.5 to 4 million for a one-time phase one appropriation. That's about 3 million plus for the capital and about $500,000 for the operating first year, because we can't leverage any of the other grants except some of the private grants until we're there and functioning. And then we can begin a program, like I said, 65% of capital is reimbursable, et cetera, et cetera. Amy?
Are there other villages like this across the country that you've modeled off of?
No. There are similar names, but not the same. There's a very good one in San Diego, Vet Village, San Diego. There's a couple other ones in the other states, but they're not like this. The notion of, if you want to call it an Alaskan rural village setting, is different, particularly the cabin function. One of the things that veterans, particularly us fortunate ones that have post-traumatic stress from combat, is we love to isolate. Just go in and shut my door, and you guys leave me alone. One of the things we do is we provide 3 meals a day, so we get them out of their cabin and in and sit down and have the meal. We provide activities. We have adventure activities, a variety of things that are all laid out in the proposal. So the cabin idea is a little bit different. Now, why did we go to the cabin idea? Because we found originally that the carpentry school used to make those and sell them at $7,000 a year a piece. We've gone through, we now have an agreement with the Akron School District through the King Career Center to make those for us, with SBA providing the materials. I think if you look through here, every one of those questions has been anticipated and asked. If we haven't, please let me know. Pete, did you have a question? No.
Right now, no.
Bill?
No, we're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Got a question behind you.
Have you identified people that are interested in moving in? I'm sorry if I missed that, if we talked about that at the beginning. Do you already have people that are interested?
No, we have not done that yet. We have talked to many people that are interested in it, but we have not developed a list. The way we would like to do that is the same way that they did at Carling. And that is to take the top 100 that cost the community the most, and you interview them. Now, working with the domiciliary, we'll know what their graduation rate is, and we can anticipate that. So that's sort of how it's going to work. But we haven't done that yet because we don't want to do that until we have to. Bill?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So you're going to have this set up with 3 meals a day in a mess hall type situation?
Right. Mess hall doubles as a day room in the evening. Yeah. It has a little library or a place where they can get books in agreement with the Anchorage library, etc. All of those things are available in there.
I'm looking at your operating expenses and I see food listed here, but I don't see any.
We're waiting for a bid on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The numbers, I just got those yesterday. We contracted with a woman locally who was highly recommended to do our 5-year financial plan. We have not been able to find her. It was due on the 15th of last month. I suspect that she's out of town or something, so he's after her every day. And that's one of the sort of the last piece that we need to put in here, as well as a couple of the other numbers to particularly from the utilities. MEA is going to give us an estimate of what the monthly cost per cabin will be because it's electrically heated. We felt that was the safest way to heat those units. We originally thought we'd use wood stoves, but after talking to people that deal with the homeless community, they didn't think that was a wise idea. So we just go with baseboard heat. The rooms, the cabins are about this big, a little bit narrower. And we have one-room cabins with a loft, and then we have a cabin with 2 bedrooms upstairs. We have people who've already donated the designs. We have people willing to build them on donation. The Carpenters Union has made a commitment to give us one a year. We will be soliciting, once the project is ongoing, we have a number of major companies who want to donate a cabin a year. A cabin costs about $40,000 and about $20,000 worth of furniture. So that's what we're looking at. And anybody who donates a cabin and wants their name on the cabin, we put that donated by ARCO or whoever.
What about substance abuse treatment? Presumably, these people are on the street now. I got to believe a high percentage of them have some.
Yeah, we have an agreement with
Ernie Turner.
for detox, and we have an
Ernie Turner
ongoing
Center.
we have an ongoing working agreement with the VA to provide those services. Again, we have 2 initially and eventually 3 vans going back and forth to Anchorage as necessary. One of the things we've learned with Carlick is after about 30 days, they settle down quite a bit. Our intent is to take them out of the 2-story housing first and move them into a cabin when they're ready and when the staff believes they're ready. Our case managers will be the people that will watch that carefully. And we're working on an agreement with a couple of doctors to be available on call. The VA doesn't do that, so we've got to find. And now with the new pass for immediate medical services, we can do that. And hopefully the VA will be successful in negotiating their agreement with Alaska Regional and Providence for emergency services.
And you mentioned earlier you talked with the Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority. Is there provision for mental health services?
Yes. Alaska Mental Health Trust has actually paid half the cost for the 5-year financial plan. And Jeff and the board are very interested in this project.
Questions? Are you done, Rick, or can you wrap up in 4 minutes?
Yeah. Let me just remind you, the homeless are expensive. And if we do nothing, they're going to get more expensive. The wave of people from rural Alaska that came in after the PFD, if you're not aware of this, let me tell you what's happening. PFD went out, a wave of people from rural Alaska came into the shelter. Why? Because they can't afford the heating bill in the village. It's cheaper to get on a plane, fly into Anchorage, spend 3 or 4 months here, then fly back to their home in the village. The shelter's been bombarded with this problem. And that's caused a lot of other problems to happen down there. Bill and I have talked about a number of specific concerns I have about what's going on at the shelter and Beans Cafe, et cetera, and I'm delighted that there's some attention being paid to the dollar a shot guys and the spice salesmen and the sex trafficking and all the other things that are going on down there and in Fairview. So we need your support for this. If you have any questions, please ask them, and email is the best way to work with me, as you know. Amy?
I was just going to say, especially knowing the communities, this is my community and yours, and one thing I would say is, have you had an opportunity yet to talk to the Eklutna Valley Community Council or the Chugia Community Council?
Yeah, once this is finished, we will make presentations to each community council that's being affected. I'm already in touch with Fairview. Dick?
It'll be important that you get a support letter from each community council. I would like to see from all the Eagle River, Eklutna, Chugiak community councils.
We met with Eklutna, and they're supportive. They wanted to see the final because we were still waiting for the final layout, which has been sent to them, and we'll have another meeting with them. As you know, Dick, I do that on a regular basis for projects, so we're working on that.
But just as it comes to the summit, we're going to need those letters of support from the community councils.
I understand.
Any questions?
Great presentation.
Now, I brought this is the original design on the 80 acres, just to get an idea of what the expansion can be. One of the final things we're wrestling with, and we don't have a solution to it, is separation by gender. We do have some homeless women veterans, which is the largest, fastest growing subset of the homeless veterans community. They come home, they get a divorce, they're sitting there, they don't have a job, they got 3 kids, and they're in trouble. A lot of them want to be separate, and we're wrestling with how to do that. And we think we can do that by pods. Each pod has 5 cabins with a laundry and facility, but we're trying to figure out how to make that work. Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot. All right, just a reminder, we do, as is our custom, have pizza available in the back. If you want to make a really quick trip to get your pizza for lunch before we start our next presentation, that would be great right now. And then after about 5 minutes, we'll have Mr. Hughes talking about what's going on in Fairview.
Hey Ron, how you doing?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, good for you.
Happy New Year.
Wondering what
I'm sorry, I lost you. George actually told me, me as well, because we're not.
Because I want to let you know what I'm doing.
Well, and I've reported for them as well. We'll endorse this at the beginning of our
Oh, you're eating pizza. Okay.
No, it took me, I knew that
Okay, good.
There's multiple ground especially if it's not picking one sheet. It's a little different. It's not as bad. Right away. Oh, I
Well, this
And they're like, yeah, and so it was a great experience.
This will be nice for make sure because this will be good.
one in highlighting. One of the
Corporations become more corporations.
I go to all their council meetings.
The longer I've been here, it seems
There are numerous of them, they needed some
Congratulations.
I'll figure it out. Yeah, I'll figure it out. I think Virgil has a big they got theirs and I don't know if they got
This is why I don't do this.
These are really good. And I
Yeah. No, that's
There should have been an email, I'm going to follow up, but we're not meeting.
Just tell them this is an opportunity for you to get involved on the ground.
You remember me? Yeah, I do. I don't remember where.
Grove State.
But
You should buy my property, don't go recruiting them.
Oh, Grove State.
Yeah, Bindle Stick Park.
I want to be there.
Okay, if we can resume and get back to our seats. And we now have Paul Fuse from the Fairview Development Group. He's going to tell us what's been going on in Fairview.
Thank you,
Paul, take it away.
Mr. Chairman, and again, really thank the Assembly for forming this committee. It's really important. With me is Heidi Heinrich. She's the co-manager of the Lucky Wishbone Restaurant, and she is the chairman of our board of directors. So I'm the project manager for this, and I've been working on it pretty steadily. Before I turn it over to Heidi, I'd just say we really endorse Rick Davidge's project. This is the kind of thing that we need to do. So it's completely in line with what we would suggest. So I'm going to let Heidi kind of open it up here, and then we're going to get to some very specific actions that the municipality can help out with this. Heidi?
And the first thing I'd like to do is to thank you for letting the community and the other side of the story have their turn. Because there are two sides to this story. There are two ways that this impacts our community. We have people that work so hard to support and help the folks that are out there, but then we have the impact on the businesses, the neighborhoods, that is detrimental. And I appreciate the fact that it's now our turn, because you need to hear both sides. You need to hear how it affects the whole community. The Business Association was started because of this very problem. It became apparent that as separate entities, we were having difficulty in being heard. And forming this group and associating ourselves with Paul, who was an extremely well thought of individual, helped us a great deal. The idea that it began to allow us to have a voice in the community has been huge. I want to share a few stories with you of the other side of the story, and they aren't pretty stories. They aren't stories you want to hear while you're eating your pizza, but it's stories you need to hear. It's things that happen in our business. Fairview is ground zero. We have many, many locations in Fairview that are impacted greatly by this problem. We have the jail on one side, we have Brother Francis, we have Beans Cafe, we have the Mental Trust, we have Carlett Manor, we're right there. Anything that happens anyplace else in town, they come in and they get dropped off at the sleep-off shelter, so they get let out in the morning, not taken back to wherever it happened. So Fairview is ground zero. And trying to run a business in this community can be very difficult. We're very lucky because the Lucky Wishbone has a name that's been established for a very long time before this problem became what it is today. Last summer, I had a woman with 2 children come in with each of her children by the hand and asked to speak to the manager. And when I went to speak to her, she says, I wanted to let you know that between the cars out in your parking lot is a man with his pants down masturbating. Why the woman continued to get out of her car and come in for lunch, I'm not sure. I think I would have probably driven off and maybe made a phone call, but it was important to her to let us know. That impacts my business. I have folks that come in that some people we can say, okay, I'm sorry, you can't come in. And that impacts my business because I have customers that say, you're not going to serve this person. So each day we make decisions. Each moment we make decisions on how we deal with this issue. Today, Ernie is doing really well. He's not being loud, he's not being obnoxious, so we let him come in. He sits down, pretty soon he falls asleep in his chair, so we wake him up. When he gets up to leave, he has urinated all over, so there's another mess for us to clean up. So each day, each minute, everything that happens impacts my business. We have what we consider almost it's almost a border crossing coming up from the shelter up our hill every summer. There are blankets, there are clothing, bottles. It's a beaten path. You can see it coming all the way up. If you drive by, you can see the path coming up. Right into our community and then further into our neighborhood. I think some of the things that impact us extremely hard, in our parking lot, 2 people were shot and killed in a tent. Back behind us, another man froze to death. He was a person that lived in Carlock Manor, but he was outside, and he stayed outside and he froze to death right behind our establishment. So it is something that affects this community. And it's very difficult because sometimes the folks in Fairview are called NIMBYs, the not in my backyard. Well, there's already too much in our backyard is what we're saying. And it needs to be dealt with. And we've worked very hard to try and make these matters taken care of. We don't fight anymore. Now we start to try and work with folks to take care of the issues. We have worked very hard. We've done quite a bit and we've accomplished quite a bit since we started this association. We are not going away. We can't go away because if we stop, if we quit talking, if we quit showing up, it just keeps coming into Fairview. This is our job now. I can't even tell you how many hours I spend doing this away from my restaurant. This is my life. This is my business. This is what I have to do in order to keep it going and to help my community, the community that supports the Lucky Wishbone. On the way home yesterday, I passed a young man stumbling out of the Holiday, and this is over in Diamond. And the whole entire group of cars had to wait because he couldn't make it across the highway as drunk as he was, so everybody waited. This young man was maybe 20 years old. We got to get a program that helps and takes care of this because this is a lifelong process that this young man has started.
So I want to go through some of the practical solutions that we come up with, and what you're going to see here I would call beyond housing. A lot of the focus has been on housing and wet housing and everything, but it's a great way to take care of people, that if that's all we do, it just ends up being a base of operations. And a lot of the people that we see on the street causing these problems are staying in this wet housing. So in some way, we're just kind of enabling that. The solutions we're going to push towards are really things that try to push people into treatment, to say, you have to go beyond that and you have to take some responsibility. So one of the first ones we talked with, and we've been speaking with the administration about this, and this is a no-buy list for repeat offenders. And I know that the administration is working on it. The idea would be that if you were picked up 3 times by the Community Service Patrol, and they do a breathalyzer of them, that they go on a list that you can't buy alcohol. And it's not a perfect solution, but it sets a post out there that says, you're not gonna be able to buy alcohol. They might try to get their friends to. We're looking at legislation for the state next year that would say if you buy alcohol for somebody on the no-buy list or for the red stripe list, right? There's no sanction there, that it's the same as buying liquor for a minor. So we're gonna try to close that loop. When we did people talk about civil rights, we went and talked to the ACLU and they said, look, we know these people are destroying themselves drinking. We don't have a problem with this. We could live with it as long as it's not used for other things. If it's specifically to give people the treatment, we don't want to be used as an aggravator in a child support case or something like that. And we said, okay, we're fine with that. So we would ask you to look at that. That would take an ordinance from you in the system, but the police and fire department are already working on that, so I just wanted to let you know about that. The next thing is that we want to try to get more people into treatment using the police department and our enforcement action. So what happens now, so somebody is defecating in somebody's business, or they're exposing themselves to children, or they're trespassing, or the things that we see all the time. Well, the police come in and arrest them. They have to fill out all the paperwork. They come in, they show up to court. They have no money. A fine means nothing to them. They're not going to put them in jail. This is the 18th time they've seen them. The court just lets them out. The next day, the police officer there, same guy is right back on the same speed corner. Very, to them, seems like it's a waste of time for them to do the enforcement. They do all this enforcement and nothing happens of it. So we would like, with your cooperation, when the police arrest people and with the prosecutors and the courts, to tell people, we're not going to just let you escape. Now, you get a choice here. You can either go to jail or you're going to go to treatment. And we want to make sure that treatment is available. I just think we have to set that standard that this type of repeated violations of our laws here, even though they're misdemeanors, by the time you stack them up, these are the things that Heidi's living with every day and that are unacceptable to our communities, and a horrible example for our children to see this all the time. Not just Fairview, it's all around town. You see it everywhere now. So, you know, I think that this is another good course of action. Now, we did go to the legislature and got an appropriation of $4 million for the next 2 years. They have proposed letting those contracts out. It's still completely uncertain how they're going to be implemented, but I did talk to Albert Wall, he's the guy at Health and Social Services, and he says once these are awarded, they wrote into the contract that they had to, those contractors had to coordinate with the community. So in about 2 or 3 weeks, he said he would come up and hold a meeting with those contractors, and we'd like to invite you and, you know, Melinda from Health and Social Services. We'll be there, the community council, to say how is this actually going to be implemented, and how can we coordinate it with the court system, with the fire department that responds to these community service patrol and all those. So I think that's an important opportunity that those resources will be there. But we have to make sure they're providing the services that are necessary and that it's coordinated with the municipality. The next thing is public restrooms, and I know we used to have them on the park strip and there were problems there and everything, but if we don't have some place for people to go, they're going to be going in our front yards and they're going to be going in our businesses. We have businesses in Fairview on a regular basis. It's a place, a business of public accommodation. People have to come in and you know, get to the second, third, or fourth floor. They're using the elevator as the toilet. So they go in there at someplace warm, they go in and do their business, and here comes somebody to come in. There's a big pile in the corner of the elevator. Well, when I went down to Beans Cafe for a meeting down there, they had a big meeting with everybody, get ready for winter so you don't freeze to death. And I noticed a little lady over there, and she had a huge case of toilet paper, and she's wrapping up little packages. Well, everybody, they give it to them because they know they're going to be out crapping in somebody's yard or somebody's business, and they want them to be clean. You can't you know, fault them for wanting people to be clean and sanitary. But the same token, it is just granted that people are going to be out there doing this. So I did talk to some of the people that provide this, like porta potties and stuff. They said this would be a special case. They've got them to where they automatically unlock after a while. The people they send in to clean them actually wear a hazmat outfit to go in and try to do this. But unless we've got some alternative for them, this is what's going to happen. So, you know, I think we ought to take a look at that. We maybe try to develop a budget for that. I don't think it would cost a whole lot. And if people don't have a place to go, we know where they're going to go. They try coming into her business, they go in there, they rip the toilet off the wall. You know, I mean, it just, this is constant, so that there's no option. You have no place for people to go. The other is the bus stop at 13th and Gamble. Now, it's by cars there, and we did approach the community council. We approached the people mover, because what happens, they all cluster up there. They're there to go to the liquor store. It's their favorite party place, and a lot of these people aren't even homeless. They have a place to stay, but this is where they hang out and party all day. And so what happens, the police come by, and they're there, they're drinking and everything, and they come by, well, everyone goes to the bus stop. Oh, we're just waiting for the bus. They're using that as an excuse. So they went to the people, they moved over, they said, well, yeah, but by our formula here, so many people get on. There's another bus stop 1 block away in one direction and another in the other. So for people mover, they couldn't justify it just based on their formula. We may ask you to give specific directions to them to cancel or move that bus stop. It's just a gathering area, and your police or your fire department will tell you every time they go in on enforcement, oh, we're just waiting for the bus. So that's a big one for us. The other social enterprise program, and you heard Rick Gabbage talk about this, and it's really a great part of what he's doing. We'd like to do something that's that as well. We're not a social service agency. We don't know how to do that, but we are in business. And a lot of the businesses we've talked to have said, yeah, I could do something. I know that you know, they're not going to show up in a light shirt from 8 to 5 every day, but you know, I've got some things that need to be done around here. Maybe it's a day labor situation, or you know, the municipality, you want to paint all the garbage receptacles to look good for the 100th year. Well, let's get a stencil, these guys could do that, but so a little more day labor, but the key to it, and actually Carlick Manor does this, it's one of the best part of their program, they allow people to work there. You work as a janitor, or you work in the kitchen or something like that. On that day, you have to be sober. I tell you, you can't drink the rest of the time, but if you want to work, you have to blow the breath meter, and you have to be sober that day. And even for the people that they've had, the few that have come out of that in the treatments are some of those people that even for that day, their brain was unfogged enough to think, I don't have to live like this. So this would be maybe even building these houses that Rick talks about, all kinds of things. These guys coming out of the village, they can fix every small engine that you can, they've done it their whole life, outboard motors, snow machines, whatever. Some basic production of artwork. The stores in town here would give anything to have it. They have to get it from China. They can't get it. So we want to put that together. We may request at the end of next year, not this budget cycle, but the end, I know you've ended up with a surplus the last few times, we may request some seed money to get a coordinator to put this social enterprise program together. Somebody has to coordinate it. We've had a lot of businesses, Arb Builders, other people, we'll donate to it, we'll help get this program going. And part of it is you start to reestablish people's self-worth. You know, people look down on them and they prove it to themselves every day. They have some capabilities, but it has to be culturally and socially that can fit them. So we're committed to putting that program together. The last one is fencing and pedestrian guiding. She mentions the freeway coming from the social service center up. And it is all municipal property there, but I have talked to John Rada. It is in the park system for some reason. They did go out and clear out a lot of the brush here as you drive along, you see, because that was a campout center. But he's actually looking and getting some prices for this next spring that would complete a fence at the bottom that would go between Ronald Levis property and the prison that would close that freeway. And, you know, a pretty simple thing to do, but, you know, it just, that's just how they come up from the top. They're camping all in there, and even little things like this would make a difference. So I think that I'll just leave it at that. We tried to be specific to the things the Assembly could do, and if we coordinate with some of these other groups and the other efforts, I think we can make a difference here. Take any questions? Anything else, Heidi?
Yeah, for me, you know, all of these things, well, very needed by our community, are Band-Aids. They're to take care of the issue so that it doesn't affect us quite as much, but it doesn't take care of the underlying problem. And that's the biggest thing, is that underlying problem has to be dealt with. We can keep doing this, we can keep doing this, we can keep doing this, but the effect that this group and all of us sitting in this room have on this issue could be huge, but it needs to continue or it's never going to change. We need this help because we can't change the fact that there's 300 people out there. And if we don't change why they're there, as soon as we put 200 in housing over here, 200 more come. We have to work on all of the solutions, and one of them is the treatment and the detox and getting everything that we need out in the rural communities so that they can do their own treatment and detox.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it seems common sense that the municipality would invest some money now to save tens of millions of dollars down the road. I mean, that obviously is the goal, or should be the goal. You know, obviously get them off the street so that we don't have to expend our public safety dollars over and over and over, year after year after year on them, because Well, that's one of the more expensive parts of local government to fund, is public safety, and it would be great if we could actually have those guys out there patrolling the streets instead of picking up guys and taking them to the sleep outside.
Mr. Train, you had a question?
Thank you, sir. Paul, you said that on number 1, no buy list. So the administration's working on that. What administration, state or city?
I don't know. I think we have somebody, I saw somebody here from the fire department. I don't know the status. I did get involved in some of the earlier meetings, and they asked us to interface with the ACLU, which we did, met with the chairman of the board and the executive director. So, I'm not sure if they're going to propose going forward with that, but if not, I think you should take it up
So we don't have
on your
a
own.
name.
It's fairly simple to do. It's a card swiping deal. And it's, the reason why you need a list and you just can't put a red stripe on a license is because what's happening, people have had restrictions put on. What they do is they go get a passport. $182, you get a passport. One of our liquor stores over here, almost half their sales are by passports. So that's how they get around it. That's why you need a list.
I know I asked some state legislators to see about closing that loophole on the passports and said they can't.
Well, but then you don't want the German tourist at the Captain Cook to not be able to go get a bottle of wine across the street.
And that's where the list comes in, because
Yes.
they don't drive. They don't need a driver's license.
Yeah.
So the list is important.
And then the other thing is that you can get off it. If you had no repeat offenses within 6 months, you come off the list. This is behavior modification. This is like, you're either gonna act good or not. Now, 2 other communities do it. Kotzebue does it. They have a list, they have a liquor store there, but you have to have a license. Well, we can't license everybody here, but it's the same concept. It really works for them.
I'm gonna have to ask Dennis Witter to say who's working on it for the administration. If in fact it's the administration upstairs, the 8-4's doing this, I want to find out who's the point person on it. Anyway, thank you.
The meetings I was in was with the chief, the fire chief, the police chief, George Michaelis, the city attorney, and somebody else. So you might inquire of that. I know that they've been working on it, but we did do our part to meet with the ACLU.
Chris, did you have a comment on
Yeah,
that?
just briefly, thank you, Mr. Chair. We asked the state determined that it was a local option issue. And so it isn't a state issue. There is the power at the municipal level to do this. And I was just going to reiterate that it was the Anchorage Fire Department that had been engaged with the question. So that's all.
The only comment I have, I agree with everything Paul is saying, but you heard both of them saying, and then we get them in treatment. I got news for you folks. This is a group of people that need residential treatment because they don't have a place to live. So if you're going to put them in treatment, it has to be someplace where they can live there while they're in treatment. I see Sherry McWhorter from Salvation Army smiling at me back there because I think she agrees there are only 3 or 4 places that provide residential treatment in Anchorage. And Keela House is the old-time one that most of you have heard about over the years. When I started there 23 years ago, we were funded for 40 beds. We're funded for 18 beds now. So that's what's happening in the treatment world. And you can rest these people, and you can get them in detox. And by the way, we only have 12 detox beds in Anchorage. As to what that means, there are 24 detox beds in Fairbanks. So we're woefully underfunded for detox also. But you have to have some place to put them for treatment. And we may be nonprofit, but we're not charity in that we don't give to charity.
So I would just add one more thing to Rosalie there. One threshold we crossed last year when we got this money, they looked at it and said, we're putting liquor tax money into this. And it's the first time they specifically had identified that to go in. And also that some of it could, although it was in the capital budget, that it could be used for operations. Now, we want to see what the contractors that the state selected to make sure they're actually doing what needs to be done. That'll be that meeting in 2 or 3 weeks where they come up there to explain it and lay it out. And again, I'll make sure all of you are aware. I hope at least some of you could come and be part of that meeting and make sure that that $4 million gets spent the way it's supposed to be spent.
The way it was promised to the public it was going to get spent.
That isn't the way the grant was written, though.
Well, we'll see. We'll go through that.
Mr. Peterson?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And one thing we've heard from people in some of these meetings in the past is that many of the inebriates do not go into the liquor stores and buy for themselves. There are runners that are available around the liquor stores, especially near dividend times and paydays and that type of thing. And so for the no buy list, the repeat offenders or whatever, we're going to have to get those runners on that list too, or otherwise, they're going to work their way around it.
Assemblyman Peterson, that's the reason why you want to say it's the same as buying for somebody that is a minor. And that actually works pretty well. You think twice before somebody says, hey, could you go get me a bottle? There is a sanction for that, but that would have to be state law. And the other thing is, you raise a good point, is that, Carr's store there, and we worked extensively with them, they won't sell it to you if you're drunk. So the problem is, all the drunks are there, they wait till somebody's sober enough to come by, they give them the money, they go by and bring it back. Well, in the meantime, everyone has to hang out there. I mean, we even looked at the possibility of saying down by Beans Cafe and everything, let's put a liquor store right there. Let's just make it easy for them to buy it. If we're gonna say it's okay for you to drink and we're just gonna feed you, let's give them a liquor store right there and let the proceeds go to treatment. It would take a special license to do that, but, the procurement of it is one of the biggest problems that we have. I know it sounds weird, but when you think about it, this is a practical aspect of what we're dealing with.
And it changes the impact on the community on the other side of the coin. It definitely affects that part, but it changes the impact on the rest of the community.
Further questions? Well, I want to thank you not only for being here today, but for all you've been doing. I appreciate, we kind of get paid for this, but you're volunteering to do a lot of work, and it's going to be things like that that are going to make a difference in this problem. As people, it's not going to be a government solution and government funding to do it. It's going to be a lot of people from different aspects pulling together. So I do appreciate what you've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next presenter is Mr. Dwayne Crofton. I think Mr. Crofton came to our attention because he had provided to us some concerns he had as a Fairview resident about some of the same issues I think we just heard from the Fairview business community. So, Dwayne, if you just want to share with us what you've been experiencing.
Well, I moved into 1201 Hyder, which is the southeast corner of 12th and Hyder, which is, as far as I'm concerned, ground zero. It fit my economics, whatever, I'm there. There is transient movement going through there down to Beans Cafe on 12th. That's kind of not really an issue. They don't really make the problem. The biggest issue there is the liquor store. There's a core group of 30 to 50 people that they hang there. And they show up starting 4:30 in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They don't leave till 2 o'clock at night, 4:30 at night. They're the prostitutes, drug addicts, drug dealers, chronic alcoholics. It's constant. It never ends. I mean, I get verbal with them. I tell them to leave. Nobody wants you around. You're not welcome. That place is the busiest phone call area for police in Anchorage. In the last 2.5 years, I'm pretty sure I've close to 2,000 of those calls. I have called up to 6 times in a night. I don't get sleep. I've kind of had a nice break for the last 4 days because it's been cold. They're not there. It's nice to get a night's sleep. Other than that, spring's coming and it's going to get amped up again. I recently had to shut my business down for a few hours a day last week to testify at a grand jury about an incident out there last summer. I mean, it's affecting my performance at work. It's affecting me on a personal level. It's constant. It never ends. The liquor store at 13th and Gamble, the liquor store at 12th and Gamble. They're open all the time. their business model is ka-ching, and they make it there. And like you say, people go around, you know, and they find somebody to buy it for them all the time. These people are not looking for a change in their life. They're happy. A lot of them out there are proud of it. I'm homeless. I got a can of beans in my pocket. I got food. I got whatever I need. The police can't touch them. When the police have responded. It's not that they don't respond, but they're handcuffed. They respond to noise complaints with flashing lights and showing up and leave. Recently, 3 Saturday nights ago, it was my 5th call at 2:30 in the morning. One officer showed up. Within 3 minutes later, there was 4 more cars because of the grief he was getting. They're not exactly the nicest people in the world or friendly about it. I'm constantly threatened. I don't mow my yard without watching what's going on. I got eyes in the back of my head. It's, you don't see kids playing out there. My neighbor, she was assaulted on the property of Fourplex where she lives, in the sidewalk. An alcoholic assaulted her. She won, but it took an hour for the police response to get there to arrest him. And my understanding is he's going to do a year in jail over this one. But you can't just walk out and take something through the garbage without looking about what's going on out there. It's not I mean, a month and a half ago, I had a rock put through my front window. That's $1,000. I can't afford that any more times. You know, I mean, I haven't even fixed it yet because I need a reason to fix it. I mean, I have a nice little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with a detached garage, built in 1959. It's a good structure. It's a nice small house. Give me a reason to make it a show spot. Give me a reason to put money into it. And maybe explain to me why I'm paying $192,000 tax value on it when I couldn't sell it for much less than $160 right now. Who's going to buy it? It's just a continual issue down there. When's it going to stop? I have people in the center of the intersection urinating across the street in front of the window. Whatever, this is a good spot. I walk out to my truck, start it in the morning. I got to watch where you step. It's not just down at Beans. It's not just the 6th Avenue. It's everywhere through there. The magnets are the liquor stores. It's what they live for. I've been told by Mr. Flynn that once a license granted, it's pretty hard to take away, but a business shouldn't deteriorate a neighborhood. It should enhance a neighborhood. You know, there has to be limits somewhere on what they can do. They recently, the one at 12th and Gamble, couldn't open past 10 o'clock because you have to have 2 people working there. He only had 1 person, so he was closed for a few nights. It was quiet. But the garbage, the litter, everything, it's constant. I mean, every Sunday I pick up a garbage bag full of garbage. If I go across the street, like I said, I don't do it before I look. I mean, I see what's out there first before I go picking up garbage every week. It's not an easy place to live in, and it shouldn't be like that. People ask, well, where do you live? Well, why should it matter where I live in Anchorage? It's Anchorage. Why should I have to worry about these things? You know? And it's a constant pressure on you. I mean, like I say, it's been really nice for 4 nights. I embrace the -0 weather. It's never bothered me anyway, but it's really especially nice now because it's been quiet. But and like they say, there's always somebody to take their place. But when the police, I mean, with the police, it always comes down to, you know, I've had police officers say, I would love to arrest him, but I can't. Well, it's a monetary thing too. The judicial system's been cut back with funding. The prosecutors, you know, even if the prosecutor prosecutes, judges don't sentence, and they're back up. And they do the same thing. There's no ramifications. They operate with impunity down there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my hands I'm up in the air. I don't know what to do anymore. You know, I call the police. They're not even, and I understand it's just a noise complaint. It's prostitution, it's drug addicts, it's drug dealing going on. It's the traffic. There's more traffic sometimes on 12th and Hyder, especially 12th and in that corner, than on Gamble at 2 in the morning. They're looking for the prostitutes and they're looking for their drug dealers. taxi. If you need a taxi, go down there. They're through there all the time. They take their clients to the liquor store, they take them down there for the women, they take them down there for drugs. I mean, this is just ongoing. The same vehicles. I have the same vehicles come through 8, 9 times within an hour, 2 hours. And they don't live there. These are nice new pickup trucks, Mercedes, Cadillacs. These are the gentlemen looking for the women and looking for their drugs. And it just doesn't end. And you know, when you talk about a cruising ordinance, well, the police officers say, well, you know, that takes money to enforce. Then you have enforcement. So it just seems to always come down like when you hear the costs of one homeless male to the city for a year, there it is. And you're not even, and you can't even do anything about it because there's not enough funding in the police department to run operations. But you have a building owner at 13th and Gamble. It would be the northeast corner. He's got, as of February, he was at 30% occupancy rate. You know, he's got taxes to pay on that building. He's trying to, you know, electricity, power, all those groovy things. Across the street from him used to be the Land Rover dealership. It's been empty since they moved out. That's over 2 years. Can't rent it. Nobody wants them. Nobody wants to be down there because of the inebriates hanging around all day long. I mean, if those 2 buildings were 10 blocks south, farther north, prime real estate. But now these guys one guy's on the verge of losing his property because he can't rent it. Nobody will show up there. I mean, it's you know, what are we gonna do? You know, how do I get, you know, the little American dream that we're all supposed to be able to attain when I have a 30 to 50 core group of people that continually are the problem down there. And I mean, I do my fair share of trying to move them on down the road, you know, and it works to a point, but I've been threatened several times, knives, you know. One of them is a veteran, supposedly a Marine Corps sniper. He's been on my front porch. He's gonna kill me. I have another individual, he swears I killed his dog. Don't have anything to do with it. Animal control picked up the dog. He was training the dog to attack people, letting the people attack people. It hit somebody. I did tell the police officers that's what he was doing. He's been in front of my house 5 times on the property line, screaming and yelling at 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning. And he gets away with it. He functions with impunity now. And I'm like a hostage in my house. I've been told by the police officers, and I believe this, if I come out of my house and especially cross my property line and deal with a situation, they're going to use the full force of the law against me because I then turn into the aggressor. Okay, so I'm supposed to let this gentleman, this guy, talk to me like that? And there's nothing I can do. I call 911 on him, and I mean, I have respect for law officers. I have respect for society's norms. But I'm sitting down here struggling. Who am I supposed to call now? They don't even want to come out on a noise complaint or a drunk out in the middle of the road or somebody trespassing on my property. They send out the Anchorage Safety Patrol more times or else they just don't show up. And I can kind of understand it. There's real crime going on. But this is kind of the start of it, the nucleus of it. And the liquor store, I'm sorry, but it is the magnet for it. And it doesn't stop. I guess I'm just out here to complain. I don't want to sound like it, but something, you know, what are we supposed to do? The frustration, the level down there is tough.
Ms. Dembowski is going to solve all your problems.
I wish. So I was just looking at a map to see where your house was. You're about a block away from Gamble. Where exactly is this liquor store?
It's at 12th and Gamble.
It's at 12th and
Alaska Spirits.
Gamble.
I believe it's
Okay.
Alaska Spirits. 12th and Gamble, and there's another one at 13th and Gamble. There's 2 of them with 500 feet of each other. I mean, you know, they're there for one reason.
And tell me, how long have you lived at your residence?
I bought that in July of 2012. I moved in.
Do you you really haven't been there that long, but have you seen it, has it been pretty constant or has it been
It's
getting worse?
constant, every day. In the last 2.5 years, there have been 8 people within a 5-block radius of where I live killed, murdered out of violence. I would guarantee you 75% of them are alcohol related. When I say that to a police officer, they go, probably more. And the last one hasn't even been solved. The week after the 4th of July was the last shooting. Just waiting for the next one. It's been kind of 6 months now, you know. No, it's like I said, you just don't go outside without looking.
And it's pretty much all hours of the day, all day and night.
From on a Sunday, it can start at 2 o'clock, and they'll go till the liquor store closes. Yeah, Friday night, 4 o'clock in the morning, they're out there. I mean, I have tired from yelling at them to leave. It does work to some point, me out there, you know, but geez, you know, they show up 2 hours later. When the police come out and disperse them, a half hour later they're back. And then I call the police again. Okay, well, you know, now there's 15 of them. I mean, and I don't call every time, oh, there's one person out there I'm going to call. I mean, I kind of give it time. Maybe they'll leave. Maybe they'll go away. You know, and then the next thing I know, I mean, I've looked, there's been 25 people out there, fights going on, and I call. And, you know, I understand the police force not fully manned. I get all these. I read the newspaper. I'm aware. And then big fights. There was probably 4 different fights going on. I make the call, and it's 25, 30 minutes before they can get one officer there. So sometimes it has a lot to do with timing, you know. So, I mean, I really try not to call till 9 o'clock at night or later. If I hear sirens, I don't call. I give it an hour, and then I'll call because they're on another call. It's very busy.
Well, I have some ideas, but we'll wait on those.
Earplugs. It doesn't work.
No. Well, I wasn't thinking earplugs.
No, I tried it.
Not me.
But yeah, it's hard to have questions. It's just a side of
Chris
I
has a
don't hear a
question.
lot.
Yeah, it's not a question, it's more detail. The community council has spent substantive hours since February, almost a year, working with the owners of the liquor stores, both of them, to create a process by which their practices become more in line with the values of the community. They run a better business. The council had been dealing with both entities in a uniform manner in one process. And through months and months and months of committee meetings and discussions and action planning and change requests, the Cars store really did, according to the process we went through, managed to improve the practices, turning away people, a safer operation. When it came time to vote on a resolution concluding that process, the body divided the question and affirmed that the practices of the Cars store had improved, but couldn't say that about the Spirits of Alaska at 12th and Gamble. And so we're still engaging in conversations with the owner. We're coming now upon the time when both of their licenses are under review and up for whatever processes you're going for. I can, on behalf of the council, say that Spirits of Alaska has not done their job. So I would just add that to the record.
Well, and just technically, you can put conditions on the license.
Yeah. So, but Cars has done a fair job of pushing people out, cleaning up their act, having security, being well manned. Spirits of Alaska has, they're having parties on the property. People are sitting outside drinking on the property. I mean, there's just all manner of craziness. It's not changed. So that's just detail. Thanks for this.
And I think also as a member of the community, it's very frustrating because many of my employees live in the area of the restaurant so that they can walk back and forth to work every day. I find it very frustrating that the answer would be to close down liquor stores because of this group of people. So we're telling people that do behave the way they should be according to society, you're going to have to take a bus because a lot of these people do not drive to go somewhere else to buy your 6-pack of beer after you've put in your week of work because these folks, we can't handle taking care of it. Again, an impact on the rest of the community. It's very frustrating to be in this situation and to take away bus stops, to take away the liquor stores, to take away the benches in the parks. We're taking away the things from the community, the people that work hard, the people that pay their taxes, to deal with this element. It's very frustrating.
Mr. Bowski.
So, one of the things I'm thinking about is, I don't see anybody here from APD, but what we're talking about is behavior modification, right? And I work, with APD very well in my community when it comes to speeding. We have a neighborhood, you have a constant speeding issue. APD comes out routinely for increased enforcement in this area. They'll hit it hard for 2 weeks. Guess what? Behavior has been modified for the next 4 months. Then they have to come back. This is the same type of thing I've been thinking about for a while, but I want to apply this to bar break too. But it's going to take an administration that is completely committed to stepping up and working with APD. We're going to have a new unit, essentially, and it's going to be a unit that's going to have to focus on, maybe they can rotate between bar break and some of these problem spots, these bars, but once you step up enforcement in these areas, and it can't be announced, it can't be routine, it has to be, but you have to modify behavior, and that's one of the ways to do it. But in my view, it's going to take a tremendous amount of investment, not just monetary, but in, changing our policing model a little bit in order to do it. And it goes back to, a little bit of community policing, and, but we have to get back to the basics. And that's why instead of closing down businesses, you focus on the people that are creating the problem. And sometimes it is a business to some degree, but other times it is not.
That's why you have to go past the police to the prosecutor and the courts. Otherwise, like Wayne said, I get frustrated, I arrest them, the same guy's right back. But there has to be a
You have to have
consequence.
the administration, the prosecutor.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted
That's right.
approach.
Police, everybody.
You can't just do one thing. You have to have a holistic approach. And that's why, when we start talking about closing down businesses, I think we have to step back and whether it's, a no-buy list, and then, what are the ramifications if somebody buys for that person? I mean, we really have to have a holistic approach, but it comes back to behavior modification and then consequences for that behavior. Right? So, I think we're all thinking about it.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dwayne, you mentioned that if they only have one employee at the liquor store, they have to close at 10.
That's what I heard one of them say, why are we closing early?
I mean,
I think there's some kind of policy
that would probably make sense because it's hard to keep an eye on what people are sticking in their pocketbooks and
I think it's a safety
backpacks
issue,
if
too.
you only have one person.
It's a safety issue,
But, so you said you noticed a significant decrease in problems when they closed at 10 p.m.
Right.
Is that correct?
Because a lot of these people, they don't get money, they get money through the evenings, through their night, right? And so they might not have $10 at 9 o'clock, but at 11 o'clock they do, bang, they're right in there buying, right? And so they weren't able to do that it was like 3 or 4 nights that he wasn't open. He was closed at 10 o'clock. And that did make a difference, But it's just like I say, they hang at the bottom, at the back side of at the store, at the side of the store on 12th Avenue. There's always a group there. The groups at 12th and Hyder, both the northwest, southwest corners. In between on 12th Street, between Hyder and Gamble. I mean, there'll be anywhere from 6 to 20 people on any given night.
Well, and that is
Crack,
something I think
smoking
we as
drugs,
members
drug
of the assembly
dealers,
can consider
prostitutes.
when they
and,
come up in front of us to renew those liquor licenses, that we say, well, maybe we believe 10 p.m. should be your closing time. That might be a place to start.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Kaufman, for sharing that with us. We certainly understand what you're facing. I wish I could say, we're going to make it go away anytime soon, but that's our ultimate goal, and I hope we can do something for it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Mr. Lee. Our next presenter is Ron Oliva, who is another business owner in the Fairview area, who has been impacted by this problem, and Mr. Leva is going to share his experiences with us.
Thanks, Wayne. Good job.
Thank you. I don't think I'd like to share my experiences with anyone because they've been so negative. Unfortunately, the tenderfoot here has only been in Fairview for 2 years. He hasn't started to carry a gun, and at least he didn't mention it, but I'd advise him not to confront any of those people. You gotta call the police and leave a message. But the danger is, I'm done. First of all, I've been in Alaska 40 years. I've been in business 32 years. I'm married to Annette, who writes for the Catholic Anchor as a freelance, and I have 5 children. I lived at my business for almost 14 years. It got so bad with the sex offenders staying at the shelter when my 3 oldest sons left, I couldn't leave my daughters there alone. I have dogs, but when I released the dogs in my industrial lot that is adjacent to the shelter, they would come back rolling in feces. And that happened 82 times in approximately 5 months. The survival kits that was mentioned, rolling up toilet paper, that's what they use. They also use the clothing that's given away. So it's kind of sad sharing experiences. I'm giving up. I'm gonna move away. I'm selling my properties, and I hope to sell them to the city, but you need to expand that shelter. The overflow impact, when granted the conditional use, was, to me, the spirit and intent is if something negative occurred, you would cap your population or address it. Hasn't happened and is not going to happen. So with that, my personal goal is specifically to sell out. Now, he's been impacted a little bit as far as assessed value, but I appealed my assessment to the property next to the shelter, and they lowered it almost $100,000. Now, I've been there for 32 years paying the mortgage, and like all of you, pay mortgages on houses. But if you had a homeless shelter come in next to you, rezone it, had a variance, had this, had that, conditional uses, and all of that changed, and your assessment went down $100,000, what do you think it's going to do to the appraised value of your property? You just lost $100,000. I have other parcels because I was told, and I go back to Brother Bob and Brother Dave, the Oregon monks, and Jim Calderola when Francis Trader died. I was a member of the Brother Francis Shelter 500 Club. My wife went to church there every other Wednesday. So we were involved in trying to help the shelter. They said they'd never rebuild in a heavy industrial area, on a hill, seismic zone 5. The land is contaminated. We don't want to get too far into that. And it's on a truck route, on a hill, with no crosswalks. And let's talk about dignity, care, and compassion. The alternative site to the Brother Francis Shelter, guess where that was? Behind the new police station. And guess what got that site? Animal control. On a bus route, near the police, near the Native Hospital, near Providence Hospital, near API, and close to the university, where the warm and fuzzy students could go over there and help them out. Now, when I approach you to sell out, you can build these cabins, which is a good idea. They did it in Oregon. I saved the article. And I want to let you know that I don't consider myself an expert on this, but after 32 years of being an adjacent property owner to suing them, I sued the Brother Francis Shelter, and I sued Beans Cafe, and I had to include the municipality because they leased them the property for $1 a year. I basically did it because the conditional use called for a report from the shelter on the negative impacts. And they had an opportunity to present that they had calls to the shelter 1,300 times in a year. A year. If you were adjacent to a business and they had 1,300 police cars, fire, paramedics, every time I hear a siren and a cop comes next door, I get scared. Would you want that to happen next to your business? But they went to planning and zoning to do the report. It was all roses. Nothing could have been more perfect than the performance of that shelter and the lack of responsibility outside their boundary. So in the lawsuit, I got $30,000, 10 from Beans, 10 from the shelter, 10 from the city. The city should get their 10 back because I'm not going to sue myself. And it's in the lease that they hold the city harmless and pay all litigation. So those two agencies owe the city. We owe them nothing. They wanted to put up a bigger fence. That was their recommendation. More dumpsters. And I was going, came back to the assembly, Dick? Did I come back? With $30,000 in my hand, 3 checks. And I said, here, you can go to Rasmus Foundation, match this money, get yourself private security, private garbage pickup, and a medic. And guess how many people showed up for that? $30,000. Take a number 0 to infinity. It's the first number, 0. Because all the social service agencies are social service polluters. They don't care about a neighborhood. They live somewhere else. Let's dump it in the poorest neighborhood, and that's Fairview, because we don't have a voice. Politically and economically, our clout, I brought into my auction yard in 1 week 990 registered bidders who spent $1.2 million in 1 day. Guess why I lost that contract? You couldn't do a convention of hairdressers and get that kind of economic impact. Guess why I lost it? Security. A drunk woman was in one of the loader buckets, and I had to walk her down the beams, and the contract person saw that. I sued him on safety, economic interference, health, and quiet enjoyment. I don't have to mention the quiet enjoyment, Dwayne. I think you covered that. The safety, how many of you have had a gun pulled on you? Dick, big gun man, machine man, how does it feel?
It's a 12 gauge, got my attention.
12 gauge got your attention? Well, the spice head pulled up his shirt and he had something that looked like a 1911, big one. I mean, I've seen big guns, but he had it. And believe me, I needed another pair of underwear. You don't want to confront these people because it's no longer the inebriate, the drunk, they're violent. Heidi didn't tell you about the person she let sit and have coffee, etc., but asked them to leave at 11 because the crowd comes in. I want a place to sit. And on the way out, boom, right to the face. She took one. Now, these people are violent. And the reason you have to buy my property and expand there is because I no longer, in good conscience, can have these people go to your backyards. You're not going to vote for your backyard. Surely you're not. And of course, Melinda back there said, well, they're welcome in my backyard, except we can't change the zoning. So they gotta stay there. And you have to expand in that location. But you gotta get the controls. Security, their own medic and then their own garbage removal. But it has to be contracted out. Because this nonsense about monitors and volunteers, hey, it's the choir singing to the choir. Go down there. Dick, did you go down there and see the tents?
Yes, I did.
Did you see the garbage?
Actually, I saw the sleeping bags on the way there.
Do you think I can perform my business function there? And I'm the contractor for the municipality. It's too dangerous. The fecal material, MRSA, even the CAP team, when they go into the camps, you know what the CAP team member did with her boots after she went through the tents? She threw them away. So that's health. Safety is obvious. Quiet enjoyment is obvious. And economic interference, I'm moving away because I can no longer perform the services that I have provided. And most of it is environmentally sound because I'm into recycling. I'm an auctioneer, I'm a personal property appraiser, and I'm in real estate. I moved down to Post Road, but the financial drain and strain and stress has affected my health, has affected my financial condition where it's very fragile, and in true conscience, I have to say it affected my marriage and my family. Because who wants to be a role model when I'm gone, and hopefully I won't be shot by one of those spice heads, but when I'm gone, when my grandchildren say, what did Grandpa do? Oh, he sued a homeless shelter and a soup kitchen, and he won. Why? Why did I win? Because they're protected by a veil of what I call do-gooders, the warm and fuzzies. Recently, we had one of those episodes, and if you saw it on Channel 2 News, Pay It Forward. Maria Garcia, she allegedly comes down there. It says no parking. We gave up our parking on my lot that I rent to ML&P. No parking. Why would you go down there and park and give away food and clothing when on the other side of the street where they're camping, it says no camping? What kind of role model are you to those people? If you don't respect the law, why would they respect the law? And then you stand them in the street and you give them old clothing that doesn't fit them. They look like street people. And then you feed them when right across the street is help. That's all they have to do is go across the street and follow simple rules. Don't come in drunk. Don't be having spice. Don't be fighting. And we will get you a case manager and get you back on your feet. But here comes Pay It Forward. And what she said to me when I said, don't do that. Don't feed those people because they'll stay there. They'll come back there and they're going to cause some problems, which obstructs the emergency vehicles going into the shelter when they're truly needed. You know what she said to me? She said, you must not have been raised to do good. Now, calm as sometimes I am, I said, that's a little judgmental. And I said, we're going to let that slide. But in the back of my head, if you ever insult my mother, who was an angel, and my father, who only got $28 a month retirement, $5,200 in the best year of his life, and 5 college-educated children, I will have you face your vehicle, or however you got here, grab your ankles, and give you a little kickstart back to where you came from, with 2 cheeks behind your head. A little bit of passion there. And that's where I'm at. Now I can go on and tell stories, but Amanda saw me crying, and I'm a little emotional when it comes to insulting the family unit, but also insulting the work ethic that this state is based on. It's a worker state. It's businessmen. It's small businessmen. We go to work. It's not welfare. And it's not social services. That just keeps growing. They keep breeding like a cancer. And that's what they did down in Fairview. We could have taken 200 jobs from the Red Dwarf Inn. The McKinnon Shelter, that was the last B3 property available. It was crazy. We could have had another 200 to 300 housing units there, which would have built our community up in walking distance to cars. That's what makes a neighborhood. That's what makes a city. And guess what? I've gone before the Assembly, the Mayor, the Han Commission, the Fairview Community Council. I went through the United Way. I did everything possible. The boards of the Brother Francis Shelters, Catholic Social Services. Deaf ears. And they brought us more. 120 for the shelter. Our goal is 80. It's 371, and they haven't resolved the crosswalk. There are no crosswalks from Reeve Boulevard to Cordova. There's no signaled crosswalks. And you're drawing inebriates down there. How would you like to be someone driving with children, swerve to miss an inebriate, hit a telephone pole, and kill your 2 children? Who caused that? The inebriate. And how would you feel? Go to that funeral. Listen, I could tell stories, but I'm going to publish a book and recover my money if you don't buy my property. Because they're good ones. And unfortunately, I believe in Fairview. I've been on that council 20 years. It's good. They're into revitalization. Social services are into ghettoization, and they feel no responsibility outside their boundaries. You got to hold them accountable. Beans Cafe, $2 million a year budget. They just bought the Cottrell building. They own Ashley Movers down there, or whatever, Allison Movers. They own the building. They had so much money at one time, they couldn't deposit it in local banks. You know why? The FDIC wouldn't insure it. After they raised it to $250,000, the money came back from Seattle. I've heard enough, and I always say, can I use 4-letter words? And at the last meeting I went to, they said, oh, you got to keep it civil. I've been civil. I said, well, the 4-letter words I was thinking of was love and cash. But you know what it is? It starts with a B, and the other word's an S. And I bet you're thinking of a little bowl spit. And that's what I'm going to leave you with. Because, hey, I can answer any of your questions. I identify with Fairview. I love it, but got to get out because they're going to kill me. It's as simple as that. They've killed me. The neighborhood is going to continue. You just got to get it under control. Any questions? I'm going to...
You answered all the questions, right?
Well, great, because January 30th, I'm going to file for mayor. I'd like to make that announcement here. And anyone in this room who doesn't believe that I would make a good mayor, don't raise your hands. It's unanimous. Tax the nonprofits, tax the churches with a homeless tax, and you will get $60 million. That's what you will get. And if the churches believe in helping the most vulnerable in Christ-like behavior, or Allah, or the synagogue, let them put up the tax money. Because my cops are going to their churches when they get robbed. My firemen are putting out their fires. Hey, they have a heart attack in the church. It's our paramedics. And the nonprofits, pick, click, and give. I like that one. I don't believe in the permanent fund, because 17 billion barrels of oil has come down that pipeline. We don't have a conscience about global warming. Those are hydrocarbons. The tax in the city shouldn't be a sales tax. Whatever the permanent fund is, a special assessment goes out to help the most vulnerable equal to the permanent fund. And no more exemptions for senior citizens on property tax or anything else. Should I ask who's going to vote for me? Hey, thanks for having me. That was fun, hopefully educational. And remember, if it isn't, pay it forward that I asked to bend over and grab your ankles. And maybe one of you. So be careful. I was a good field goal kicker.
Thanks, Ron. Your viewpoint is an important part of this process we're doing, and I think everybody here heard it, and thank you for helping us out.
All right.
With that, time for closing comments. Ma'am?
I'm Corinne O'Neill. I'm the Supportive Housing Division Director for Rural Cap. I just wanted to sort of put this on the potential agenda, and I see that Carmen's here from the coalition, and maybe she has something to add. But you know, we're very concerned about the state budget and all of the BHAP funding, which is the basic shelter structure for the entire state, is wiped out of the budget right now. Along with all of the supportive housing funding, including all the major funding for projects like Garlick Manor. And so, as the Assembly looks forward to going to Juneau, please think about the fact that right now the infrastructure for all of homeless services is in jeopardy. So, thank you.
If folks aren't getting the emails, just make sure that you stop and give me your email before you leave information on the agendas and meetings.
Heidi?
I guess once again, I got teared up. It's tough. It's tough. And thank you for listening to us.
Well, hopefully we can do more than listen.
Well, that's what we hope. We try.
Just Mr. Evans, the city legislature's meeting at the Assembly Chambers, 9 o'clock Saturday morning till noon. So if you don't want to spend the money to Alaska Airlines to go to Juneau, legislators will be here on Saturday at the LUSAC Library. It starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, so show up there.
But Dick, they did that the last time, and that's all it was education, a one-issue presentation.
Couldn't even get in the door.
Yeah, couldn't get there. And
You know, Ron, if you let them go down to Disneyland, you can never get to them. I'd much rather have them eyeball to eyeball here. It's only a couple of hours. Go and talk to them.
If you can get it.
if I can get in.
Seeing no other comments, we are adjourned.